Hi, my name is Mark Belash. I'm back here on the main stage. President of TorontoEntrepreneurs.ca. Really glad you could join us today. We've had some amazing speakers already, some incredible topics and discussions, and a lot of networking I've been seeing through the course of the afternoon. So it's good that you've been able to make it. I am also going to introduce our panel here, our CEO panel, which is going to run for the next about 55 minutes or so, and really going to get into a lot of the details and what's going on kind of in the CEO world during this COVID-19 time period. So I also wanted to take this time to thank Rachel Mitchell and Andy Francesco for putting this event on. They've done an amazing job. This event has been presented by TorontoJobs.ca, and really excited to have it. Feel free to give us some feedback as well as you can. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce each of the panelists right now. I'm going to ask them a question, and then we'll have some panel discussion and go from there. There's so much to cover here. So first off, I'm going to introduce Jim Estill. Jim is president and CEO of Danby Appliances, as well as CEO of ShipperBee. Danby Appliances, if you're not familiar with it, manufactures and distributes over 2 million appliances per year. Danby is being transformed by their newest product, Parcel Guard, a smart mailbox for consumers that stops parcel theft. ShipperBee is a new venture that is ready to revamp outdated shipping channels into a system that is better for consumers, retailers, and the environment. Jim started a computer distribution business from the trunk of his car while in university. He grew that business to $2 billion in sales. Jim has invested in, mentored, and advised many technology companies, including BlackBerry and Clean BlackBerry. He joined their board before they went public and served for 13 years. Jim Estill has been involved in sponsorship efforts to settle refugee families in Guelph. The Financial Times, BBC News, The Guardian, and Toronto Life have all covered the story. Jim's most recent endeavor is as co-founder of Ventilators for Canadians, V4C, a growing team of philanthropists and entrepreneurs who have come together to find solutions to help Canadians through the COVID-19 health emergency. Jim was awarded the Order of Ontario, the province's highest honor, in 2017. He is EY Entrepreneur of the Year for 2019 for Ontario and has been awarded an Everyday Heroes Award by the Global Hope Coalition. In 2018, Jim Estill was awarded the Order of Canada. Very impressive, Jim. Unbelievable. So it'd probably take 5 minutes just to read the intro, but congratulations on all the success. So let's talk about the recently producing the ventilators and air purifiers, how that came about, how you work with the government on that, and maybe you can describe a little bit about the program.
Well, sure. I mean, you could read that there was a crisis. You could see what was happening in Italy. You'd show up at the hospital. There wouldn't be a ventilator. They'd say, oh, you're over 70. You go die in a gurney in the hall. I didn't want that to happen in Canada. And I tend to be a person of action. So I said, well, what can I do? So I said to my designers and engineers, let's design a ventilator and make a ventilator. We started to do it. And then we said, hey, wait a minute. This is pretty tough. We can't do this on our own. So we enlisted support from ABS Friction and Crystal Fountain and JMP Solutions and ultimately Baylis Medical to make, and we used a Medtronic design. We didn't use our design. We designed one, but we weren't able to get it across the finish line. And now we're producing 10,000 ventilators. Our part of it is mostly just doing, providing labor to do the assembly. That's what we're doing.
Excellent. So introducing Lauren Hobb next. Lauren is the CEO of Zoocasa, an award-winning Canadian brokerage. Zoocasa offers intelligent full-service real estate by using technology to amplify an end-to-end experience provided by their in-house real estate agents and team. In 2019, Zoocasa was recognized for their rapid growth and innovation by being named as one of Canada's fastest-growing companies by the Globe and Mail and a Tech Fast 50 company in Canada by Deloitte. Lauren is an active angel investor in Canada and has over 10 years of entrepreneurial experience prior to acquiring Zoocasa. Most recently, she was founding investor and remains an active director at Rate Hub Inc. and created Scholarhood, Canada's first tool for families searching for home listings by school district. She was also awarded, most recently, Financial Times awarded Zoocasa as America's top growing company. So let's talk about that first, Lauren, and welcome. Thanks for being here. Let's talk about your Financial Times award, how that came about, and what that's, if you can just talk about that, that would be great. Congratulations.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's very humbling to come up after Jim here. I'm at a loss for words. But the growth companies, effectively, we bought Tsukasa from Rogers back in 2015. And I, quite frankly, I think that it was just, it's been on our side that 2015 was a very, a small year. We've had a lot of growth since then. So when it comes to the growth, it's really just been growing out our team and then growing out the tools we provide to users so that they're coming online and convert them into clients. And we were really thankful that Financial Times, Deloitte, and the Globe have all taken notice.
Excellent. So Mohamad Fakih. In 2006, Dr. Mohamad Fakih, entrepreneur and philanthropist, purchased a nearly bankrupt restaurant and transformed it into what is now known as the fastest growing Middle Eastern halal restaurant chain in North America, Paramount Fine Foods. Mohamad's determination to change perceptions surrounding Middle Eastern food has driven Paramount's brand success across Canada and internationally, as well as advancing the global Middle Eastern food trend. As a community leader, Dr. Fakih regularly participates in fundraisers and community events, supporting multiple causes and organizations, including the Canadian Cancer Society, Islamic Relief Worldwide, Sick Kids Hospital, the Make-A-Wish Foundation in Toronto, and UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency of Canada. Both Paramount and Mohamad have donated generously to these charities and other nonprofit organizations. Across his restaurants, Mohamad offers discounts to all emergency service workers in uniform to show appreciation for their service in our communities. In the past 3 years, after the Canadian government decided to welcome 25,000 Syrian refugees, Dr. Fakih made headlines in Canadian news when he traveled to Lebanon to visit the Islamic relief camps for Syrian refugees to gain a deeper understanding of the current relief efforts. Hoping to lead by example, Mohamad partnered with Ryerson University, Toronto for the Lifeline Syrian Challenge, allowing Paramount Fine Foods to fund Employment Support Council to help recruit new Syrian Canadians during their job search. Mohamad opened the doors of Paramount restaurants to the skills and drive of many refugees bring to Canada by providing up to 150 jobs for the newcomers in his restaurants in the year 2017. In 2019, he was awarded the Key to Mississauga by Mayor Bonnie Crombie and was selected as the most admired CEO by Waterstone. Being a Mississauga resident myself, it's very impressive, Mohamad, and congratulations on your success as well. So let's talk about your pivoting the business to, given the impacts of COVID-19, you've got a brand new business starting in a few weeks called Boxed, which is spelled BOX''D. So why don't you talk about that, how it came about and kind of how it works as well?
This actually is going to make me look like I'm a genius, which is I'm not. Because the idea of Box started around 9 months ago, where you ordered on a digital platform, you pay on a digital platform, and you pick up from a cubby. And before COVID-19, we had some concierge in the front because we didn't want to lose that human touch. And behind those cubbies, there's real chefs, real kitchens, great food, higher-end food. But if people are busy, they're on calls, lawyers, business people, bankers, so they can actually order, pay without interrupting their work, and so they can focus on changing the world themselves. And then we stopped the construction right after COVID-19, and we are finishing it as we speak. We're opening in June 15 to 18, it depends on the construction last touches. And I think we'll be one of the first businesses to reopen after COVID-19 as a brand new business and a brand new brand. And it's great because your food will be prepared by one chef, sealed. You can pick up from out of a cubby, personalized to you, sanitized before and after, and you can get great food fresh with maintaining physical distancing. I mean, that's not why I got into the food business. I love the food industry because we all have something about food that brings us together, and breaking bread, quite honestly, I believe is the solution to the world of problem, including today. Right? And hopefully we'll go back to that. But I'm telling you, that concept is going to make me look like I'm a genius, but I'm not.
Well, you are. I mean, you have a very impressive background as well, as I mentioned. So that's great. So someone can check out the website, Paramount Fine Foods, and I think they can subscribe to some information in the box. Subscribe to the newsletter to get some more information as well, right?
Yes, for sure. And definitely, I mean, it'll be starting something new. Unfortunately, we will have to implement some of those copies at Paramount. Hopefully, I'm going to go talk to Jim after this and see maybe we can do it locally instead of bringing it from other countries for that copies. Because quite honestly, I think the restaurant business is the hardest hit, and it's going to be the hardest to come back. So people will need to regain the consumer confidence, and meanwhile, we need to find them other solutions.
Yeah. It's things like these, like panels like these, where ideas start generating, and it's like, hey, why don't we connect and so, and it goes on to different things. So yeah, definitely amazing connections that can be made that way. So kind of coming back, Jim, then what you've been an entrepreneur since like I think you were a kid. I think you told me before. Like what are the ingredients that you think make a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I think with successful entrepreneurs, you need to be willing to look stupid. So you can start a business and it fails, and it's like fail often, fail fast, fail cheap. Good entrepreneurs are highly persistent. If you become an entrepreneur because you want to work less, you've done the wrong thing. You actually work more when you're an entrepreneur. I guess the other thing is it's not one thing, it's all the little things. So I've made most of my money in businesses that other people are doing substantially the same thing. And to say, why would someone then buy from me? It's all the micro, tiny competitive advantages that we can have. So I spend a lot of time thinking about competitive advantage and trying to figure out how we can have slight advantages in different areas.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Even just a small advantage can result in huge returns, can it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, good. So Lauren, your business has been basically originally really set up for online. So during COVID, maybe you can talk about how it's impacted, because you're really effectively paperless. You're virtual in a lot of respects on the real estate side, but obviously the real estate industry has been impacted too. So maybe you can talk about kind of how your company has dealt with COVID and what are the changes within the real estate industry as well.
Yeah, definitely. So our industry has not been as hard hit as restaurants, but we're at the Toronto Entrepreneur Conference here. So speaking to Toronto, April sales are about 30% year over year. So it's been a pretty drastic impact for us as well. In terms of our actual business process and operations, we're paperless. But the reality of real estate is it's a contact sport. So you are still face to face. We originally connect with users online, but to turn that user into a client and to be their advisor, up until COVID, it was always in person. So we'd meet them at the office, we'd meet them in their homes, we'd take them on showings, and our agents were really out and about, holding hands and driving around in cars with their clients. So this has really just taken that virtual meeting into a little bit further. And then what we're doing now is we're having virtual meetings just like this one, face to face, with our clientele. And I think that what's been interesting with this, and we're seeing it across real estate agents, is a lot of people are thinking, wow, this is really it. This is when the industry is going to change in real estate. We're going to go totally virtual. People are going to buy houses they've never seen. And we just haven't seen that. So across North America, I don't think that's actually what's going to happen. I think this has actually made the agent more important, because what this has shown is data is one thing and you can get that online. But people right now are feeling very emotional and wanting to understand how does that data apply to their personal situation. And so what I'm foreseeing happening right now is we're going to have less agents doing more deals, but that agent has almost solidified the importance of that agent in terms of their advisor and their emotional handhold role. And we'll see that continue.
Yeah, that sounds great. By the way, if anybody wants to ask a question, you can just go into the event and ask a question. Just mention me so I can see it coming through, and I'll try to answer as many questions or ask as many questions as I can. So Mohamad, you moved to Canada 16 years ago, new Canadian. You had some struggles. You've talked about them in the past when you landed. So that's why you want to give back a little bit. But for new Canadians, new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are new to Canada, what would you suggest they should do if they just landed or in the last 6 months?
Well, I mean, I would say I hope they didn't land 6 months before COVID-19, but because everything I'm going to tell them is not going to work hopefully in 3 months from today, or would not work long before. But I think it's very important when you land here. Like Canada made me feel as a citizen from day one that they consider this country as their country, and it's very important. Jim always says, I watch a lot of Jim interview, they need to find mentors, and they need to actually jump in and try to understand the country, the people. I worked at the coffee shop to learn Canada and Canadian, and to understand even the Canadian jokes and what makes them happy, what makes them upset, and what the right thing to do. But also importantly, never lose who they are. They're coming to a country where we celebrate people from where they come from. And that's very important. Not try so hard to become more Canadian. It's more Canadian to stay who you are. Learn the country, respect the country, modify and integrate without losing what's important to you, right? Because we all do what we do to make our parents proud and our children look up to us, and not by setting an example of losing who we are. I think they need to listen, learn, be ready to understand that without the Canadian experience, a lot of companies don't hire them yet, and a lot of companies do hire them. But at the same time, they need to understand that's part of the growing pains. And I learned in my life, and during today, again, I'm happy to learn from this great individual, and that will make me better and not skip the growing pain. Go through it, it's fine. But the mentor will make you bridge that gap.
Okay. And if there's somebody watching on entrepreneur who wants to maybe connect with you in terms of maybe starting up a franchise, what would you suggest, or how they go about connecting with you or your company?
I mentor a lot of companies today and people, because that's what people did to me when I came here, and they have made a difference to my life. And I would love them to reach out. They'll make me better. I'll learn it from them. You know, you can learn it from people from different level of experience, different age group. So just reach out on LinkedIn, on social media, anywhere. Just reach out and I'll find you. I answer people. I reply to everyone. I feel guilty if I don't, because people reply to my, like a smile from a Canadian made me feel so welcome when I came here. So it makes me feel so guilty if I don't reply. And sometimes the things that really I don't want to reply to, but I still reply.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So Jim, back to you. Everyone's struggling, and thanks very much. People are sending me questions, so I'm going to roll those in as well. But Jim, everyone's struggling in some way or another, whether they're a business owner, employee, etc. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's struggling, maybe thinking maybe they should shut down their business, maybe do something else, maybe whatever? What advice would you give to them? And maybe you can share like an example over time that you've had where you've had some struggles. Maybe now might be an example you can share, or maybe over the course of your life as an entrepreneur.
So during the pandemic, there's major change, and entrepreneurs thrive on change. So in reality, as an entrepreneur, we're better suited during this time of high change, even though we don't feel like it. Peacetime CEOs, you can kind of just polish what you have and do a little better on what you have. In wartime, which is what I liken this to, we have to do major pivots. One example, I have a small division that sells bar fridges to hotels. And we have a 30% market share in bar fridges and hotels at Holiday Inn and Marriott and all those places. Well, guess how many of those are being sold right now? Like 0. So what do? We need to pivot into another area where, because at the same time that's happening, people are spending more time at home. When you spend more time at home, you need a bar fridge in your home to augment your other refrigeration. Another thing that's very hot right now is freezers, no pun intended. Everyone is food security. We're nervous about that. There's meat shortages. And so freezers, you can't make enough of them. So while one thing's good, one thing's bad. And like someone said, nothing is either good or bad. It is. And then what we do is react to it. One wise mentor once explained to me the difference between conditions and a condition is something that you just deal with. So if the exchange rate is the exchange rate, if the duty rate is, it is what it is. I can't change the duty rate. I can't change the exchange rate. I can't change the unemployment rate. These things I don't feel I can change. But the key is I can react to them in ways that can that we can thrive. And as an entrepreneur, I actually love it because I pride myself on speed. I think I can be as fast as my competitors, if not faster. and we can do a little bit of micro pivoting and stuff like that. Is it all fun? It's not all fun, but at the end of the day, I am highly confident that we'll thrive through this.
It actually does. You're right. It does create opportunities to pivot, and that seems to be the big term right now for entrepreneurs, and the big reset. I think that's the other thing they're calling it. I think right now everybody's resetting their businesses to maybe square one again. And those advantages that those big companies had before, those advantages may not be as big as they were previously. You know what I mean? I feel that way anyways. So Lauren, your agents, they work virtually for the most part? Do they work in the office? How does that work?
Our agents were already about 50% virtual. So most real estate agents do work from home, work from their car, kind of work from wherever they may be. So they were already virtual. Our office staff, so our engineers and our kind of frontline administrative service professionals, they were all in the office and they're all virtual now. So we're kind of dealing with the challenges of really team cohesion during this time. And it's interesting because I think before the pandemic started, everyone wanted from us a more flexible work from home policy than we had at the time. And one of those days, and within 2 days of working from home, everyone missed each other and wanted to be back in the office. And it's been interesting. We're finding, our top performers are almost burning out because they're working too much from home. The hours are blurring. It's harder to turn off, and we're having to work with them on shutting it down and how do you shut it down. And I think that's probably a big risk for a lot of entrepreneurs. And then other team members, it can be harder to motivate them to continue to work and to have that output. So this has been just a really different time to be guiding a team and be trying to motivate both our employed staff and our 100% commission agents. Great.
So Mohamad, I want to talk about the philanthropic stuff that you're doing right now, which is phenomenal. I mean, for someone who may not know who Mohamad is or what he does, I want to just read a few things here. So last month, you jointly announced with the city of Mississauga about raising funds for the Mississauga Food Bank during COVID. You traveled to Lebanon. You saw an opportunity to help refugees from Syria. Maybe you can talk about that, about what Paramount is doing. I also want to talk about how that you're giving back to the community during the pandemic. So you're donating 2,000 meals to food banks and shelters across the Greater Toronto area to support the most vulnerable in these uncertain times. You're working with Feed Our Heroes, an initiative to support hardworking frontline healthcare workers through meal delivery. And all frontline workers at Paramount will receive 50% off the price of staff meals. So, and also, I'll talk about how someone can help as well. But why don't you talk about kind of what it means to you, why you do it, what do you get in return? I know it's obviously invaluable, but kind of where the idea came from, which ones you choose, which ones you don't choose to support, if that makes sense. I know you can't select everything, you can't support everything, obviously, but maybe you can talk about the ones that you do.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, it's a very difficult subject to talk about because you're almost between showing off what you do, which is not the right thing to do, but at the same time, I always mention the gym. So I can talk about you and start talking about me. And if you want to borrow and do the opposite way, I'm fine. But I mean, I always say in life, we become what we celebrate. And we do. In politics, in life, we become what we celebrate. And I learned to celebrate kindness. And I read about Jim. He was brought up in a house that they accepted and they welcomed to a refugee from Uganda. And the result is he saw what his parents celebrated: diversity, inclusion, acceptance, and giving people a fair opportunity. And we have a Jim Estill leading the way with a lot of help and a lot of community work. And I came up from a house where we had a small little shoebox at the door. And that shoebox, it said Sadaqah, voluntarily giving. My mom used to give me $5, and she used to ask us every morning to put a 25 cents before we leave the house. And the idea was, and I know people from Deloitte and a lot of accounting firms will not believe in what I'm going to say and probably will roll their eyes down. But the idea is you're only going to be blessed if you help someone else. You're only going to be protected if you help someone else, and you actually make more money. It's even the profitable thing to do by giving more money. So I know accounting wise doesn't work. How do you make money by giving more money? But I can prove it personally. So basically, yes, you become what you celebrate. And I think especially after the pandemic, we all realized that we want to celebrate more kindness. And we should do that. And hopefully a lot of people see us doing what we do and what we try to do to help the community. And a lot of people think people that do charity, it's easy for them to do because now they have the money and the means. I've started by volunteering at a hospital when I was 6 months in Canada. And I taught French to some children that they didn't have money to pay for those French courses. And so you could do it without money. It's never about the money. But instead of talking about what I've done, and I'll tell you why I do it because I think it's not only good for me, it's good for the community, it's good as well for the team. I think I run a company where people come first. A lot of people come and they open conversation with me and say, Mohamad, customer is always first. Mohamad, customer always come first. You know what? I disagree. To me as a CEO, my people come first. And to my people, customer come first. Right? So I have to look after my people so they can look after the customer. And the charity I want to celebrate during this pandemic is number one, the food industry and what they show. We saw people that they were struggling the most, but they were using the food and the means and the labor to actually feed the front line and the homeless. And that's amazing. And the most I'm proud of is people that I mentored in business. And you think you're mentoring them to become better business people. And that's the reason why I entered business and I became a businessman, because I wanted to show that you could be compassionate and successful. And they're not at odds together. And then when you see the mentees that you've mentored starting causes themselves and asking you to support them, that's the gratification you get as a mentor. Seeing your mentees doing greater things and good things to the community. We all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And there is nothing bigger than ourselves, than Canada, than the community, than the homeless. And especially within this pandemic, we just realized we're only healthy if everyone else is healthy. And hopefully we'll come out that we celebrate, we become what we celebrate, and we celebrate more kindness.
Very impressive. And also, so someone can help one of your initiatives on Instagram at Feed Our Heroes CA, right?
Yeah.
Is there any other way that someone can get?
Hero or Conquer COVID-19, right? The good news, we have an announcement about the food bank in Mississauga. We started at $840,000. In 4 weeks, we made it. But before we celebrated that we made it, they told us they needed another $325,000. And I'm praying to God, and all of you, please help if you can. By Wednesday, we'll hit the target of $1,165,000 in less than 5 weeks. And that's great because, the food banks are under pressure. And the only way the food bank can support our community if we support the food bank. So, yeah, it's a lot of things to celebrate, to be part of. And let me tell you something. People say that they are in darker places. Listen to this crazy Lebanese Canadian guy that's in front of you. You only feel better when you help someone. If you wake up in a darker place in the morning, give $5 to charity. You'll feel better. Because if you can't smile, you made someone else smile, and that reflects on you. So please try it, and trust me, I grew up that way, and I learned it that way. I'm wired that way now.
That's amazing. Great story. Thanks very much for sharing that. And Jim, I wanted to also talk about your philanthropic ways that you've been doing. So when I read this is going back a few months ago now, just for people who don't know the story. So 2015, you were also distressed by what was going on in Syria, and you were a little bit frustrated by the government's slow response. So you decided to, in November of 2015, to sponsor the immigration of 50 Syrian families to Guelph. And it worked out to a personal cost for you of $1.5 million. And why you decided to do that? You replied, imagine going to work and discovering that your office isn't there anymore. Imagine going home from work and your home isn't there, and you've heard that a cousin has been killed. People are living in fear, and helping them come to Canada, a place of safety, was the right thing to do. So So you went on, you met with clergy, local clergy related organizations. You budgeted that each family would need about 25 to 30,000 Canadian for a 1-year period, and you did the math. You went out on Kijiji to find some apartments in Guelph that they were renting. You looked at GST and HST rebates. You Googled child tax benefits. You calculated out and you realized, like, hey, you got to be doing this. So maybe you can talk about that side of it and kind of, you know, how you came about to seeing that through and kind of where we're at right now. I know, you know, the program's on hold because of flights and so on, but maybe you can talk about that and what it means to you and the community and for yourself as a company.
So I said I'd sponsor 50 families, and then I became the poster child of refugee sponsorship. So I've kept on sponsoring some well over 100 families right now. As far as the financial end goes, I actually didn't do the calculation. The government gives you the numbers. So the government says this is how much it costs to sponsor a family of 5 or 6 or whatever. That's the number. It's not about the finance, though. It's about settling people well, which means helping them find an apartment, furnishing it, getting them pots and pans, registering their kids in school, setting up a bank account, getting a bus pass, riding the bus with people. So it's all of the processes. So I kind of set it up like a business. So I had 800 volunteers. And what I say to other business people, if you can run a company with 800 people, you can run a volunteer organization with 800 volunteers. So everyone gives me the credit for it, but I didn't meet 50 families at the airport and set up 50 apartments and you know, register 50 families in school. I mean, I could only do that using leverage, the same as a company. A company like Danby, I don't sell 2 million appliances. I have a lot of people that sell 2 million appliances. That's how we do things. So it's all through leverage. But largely, it's just a entrepreneurial frustration, not seeing things done fast enough, and thinking I need to do it. And I agree with Mohamad. The best charity is charity you do that nobody knows about. That's the best. The reason I'm willing to talk about it is it did involve a lot of the other stuff, the setup and the organization. So it was not possible to just anonymously write a check to do that particular one. And the same thing is true on this ventilators project. You needed to be public because I needed to get the other companies, I needed to get into mobilize a group to make it work. Because I learned very quickly that we couldn't just make a ventilator. It's more work than I thought. I tend to underestimate how much work things are. That's part of the entrepreneurial character. Always underestimate what things will take.
If we can just talk about kind of the retrofitting and how that works, because I know a question came in also, just, you know, how difficult, how easy was it to get it set up? Like, is it, like, I don't know, I'm not in manufacturing, so I don't know, but maybe you can just talk a little bit about the challenges that maybe you did have, like in retrofitting or whatever the changes were that you had to do.
So the whole manufacturing setup you have to think of as almost brand new because it's medical manufacturing. I don't do medical manufacturing. It was set up by Baylis Medical. They're a medical manufacturer, but it's a facility that if you looked at it, you'd say this is the worst designed setup in the world. The workstations are all 2 meters apart. Like normally we spend a decade, how do you get people working closer and how do we eliminate flow? So, you know, every time something moves an extra meter, that costs money. So let's make it closer. So all of a sudden you've got that. There's things like one-way aisles. So to go to the washroom, you have to go all the way down to the end and then back down another aisle. Well, the washroom's over here. Why not just walk down to the washroom? So it's a bunch of that social distancing. Same thing with shift overlap. There's no shift overlap where normally you like to have shift overlap. So someone can say, oh, by the way, this machine's not working as well as it should be, or we're running low on these parts, or we're having a failure on this. So everything is done differently. The same thing even on shift start times. The shift start time is not 7 o'clock. It's like you start at 6:45 and you start at 6:47. You start at 6:49. So it's all spread out much more than you would think. And a lot of plexiglass. I should be actually in the plexiglass business. That'd be the business to be in. A lot of dividers of plexiglass, or alternatively be in the hand sanitizer, because that's something we buy by the gallons because of the standards, and even cleaning standards in between shifts. It's like every forklift, every workstation is completely wiped down where before you're running and saying, well, could we put cleaning off to twice a week because, it doesn't get that dirty in one shift. Now we're wiping down, you don't even drive a forklift without someone wiping it down for you. So it's different times. It's very different times. And it does lend an inefficiency as well that does not happen in other times. Every employee who comes in has to do a survey to say, have you been with anybody with COVID? And we do contact tracing as well. So if someone was in touch with someone with COVID, then you have to say, well, who were they in touch with? And all the contact tracing. So it's not as easy as it was.
Gotcha. Yeah. There's talk that a lot of workplaces are going to have plastic shields, even just in a regular workplace with desks between them. So, there's going to definitely be a need for that in companies as well, not just on a line or whatever, right?
Oh, totally. So we actually designed a product which is a PAPR. It's a powered air purifying respirator. It looks like a spacesuit that has an air filter, and it filters the air, so you can work shoulder to shoulder with someone because you're not breathing each other's air. Because when you're running a manufacturing plant, like you read about the meat plants and how close people work and how they have to shut them down. But so one alternative is for them to separate everything by 2 meters and whatnot. Well, their cost to do that is a lot, where giving people this spacesuit type product avoids that it still has a capital cost and a slight inefficiency. But actually in meatpacking plants where we're getting some traction, it has the side effect. You don't need a hairnet because it covers your hair. And you don't need safety glasses because it has a plastic shield in front of the face. And it's positive air pressure. So if any air comes out, or if there's any opening, the air all pushes out so it doesn't get to the person.
Awesome. Excellent. So Lauren, your industry is going through a major upheaval. So maybe if you can help people watching understand, kind of where we were, which kind of I think everybody knows was pretty strong real estate market, kind of what happened with it, specifically to the industry during COVID and that time, like around March 15th or March 12th or whatever it was up until now, and then kind of where you see things heading after this.
Yeah, are you talking prices? Do we want to do a real estate update or do you run the business?
Well, I was curious, not so much prices, but obviously, good to talk about prices. I was thinking more about the structure of the industry, like how the industry may reset after this. Like, if this is prolonged and people can't come into contact with each other, we're going to have more and more virtual tours. Like, is that, kind of where things are going? But if you can talk about prices too, that would be great too.
Yeah, I think the virtual aspects are just diving a little bit deeper into the transaction. So we're seeing that the virtual uptick in terms of the first time you meet a client, it's virtual. And then you might show them a few homes virtually, aka just share your screen and take them through the photos. I think all of the agents have been amazed to find how much you can educate a client just by taking them through photos, because as a professional, you look at things differently. However, we're still seeing people are making offers and buying homes sight unseen, conditional on seeing it. So I don't think we're going to have humans buying houses they don't touch. So investors can. I bought investment property, income properties based on numbers of homes I haven't seen. However, I don't think that people are going to buy their principal residence, the homes that they own, totally virtually. There's just too much that goes into the quality, the millwork. The other thing with real estate is it's 90% emotions. So people think numbers but when it comes to buying their home where they're going to raise their family or selling their home where they have raised their family, it's 90% emotion and 10%, kind of tactile logic. So it's interesting because I think what we're seeing is people moving to making things easier for consumers and generating those leads online and connecting. But as soon as you're a client, I think we're staying in person. For those showings and diving in and seeing the quality. I think what we've seen through this is there's just a baseline amount of sales that will always happen with people that need to move for any reason. We saw across the states, there's a number of states that we're not allowed to do any sales, any showings. And even in those states, we'd still see kind of 20 to 30% of year over year sales happening. where it did have to go fully virtually. So I do think we're kind of seeing that there's a baseline of sales that will happen, pandemic or not. Yeah. I don't know
and by the way, sorry.
Oh, we can't see you anymore, so I wasn't sure if you were there.
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. I still see myself on the other live screen. So by the way, to the three of you, you're welcome to ask each other any follow-up questions or anything you want to learn from each other, because we all have lots to learn here as well. So Mohamad, federal government just announced the specific details yesterday of the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program. They had talked about it broadly over the course of the last few weeks, but yesterday the actual details came out. You have a number of retail locations and leases, and how is that impacting your operations from that perspective? Tenants being kicked out and
it's
so on.
It's a very good question. Thank you very much for asking that. I think the government has done a great work. The federal government, the rent is mostly provincial. So we try to advocate with the federal government, but we were actually talking to the wrong people. And rent has been the hardest. Landlord, and it's not against landlord, I'm a landlord myself. It's all about who you want to be and what you want to stand for. And a lot of people forget that the best people will show that they're good when there is a problem. And that's what we look for. This is the friend, the partners that you want to support. And you get to a point when you feel like you've been a tenant to someone for 12 years and they can't hold their breath for 2 months with you or with your franchisees, young families or families that they put on the line all what they own. And someone is bullying them and pressuring them and making them lose sleep in a time where everyone is stressed. You just feel like you want to hand them the key, but you even can't do that, right? So I think the government, the provincial government, should have done an eviction ban early on, so that will balance the power during the negotiations. Like we have landlords that we had to take to court on behalf of our franchisee to stop them from touching these people's property and all the money they've made all their life, and landlords were harsh enough to actually cancel the court date the morning of, so made the franchisee and us spend the $3,000-4,000 to take it to court, right? So unfortunately, that should have happened, and I think that's the piece that will be deciding the rate of mortality for small businesses, and the most difficult part for businesses for this pandemic, and that's not March, April, and May. The most difficult part is going to be when the government is going to say, it's either you learn how to ride the new bicycle or you don't. We're leaving our hands and let's see if you can balance yourself. And we all know, especially in the restaurant industry, but small businesses in general, need approximately 70% of their sales back before they're able to really hold themselves without government help. And that's not going to happen before a year. So we will be deciding the mortality rate with our own hands without helping those businesses if we do not adjust the rent piece. And we are not, in a way, putting a pressure on landlord to negotiate some percentage rent for a year, sale percentage, or some cap or subsidy if the government doesn't have that power, right? Because there's a jurisdiction and other things involved. So the rent piece is very, very dangerous piece that I think might end a lot of people's dreams. And we need to hold that. I understand after the pandemic, there is some businesses will realize that it's not viable and that they held enough, or it's not worth it because it's going to take 2 years before it'll come back and they never know if they want to renew. That is understandable. But as a community, if we put people first, if we celebrate kindness, we have to work together. And it's not by carrying a check or lip service. It's actually helping when a real difference that changes life is needed. And landlords are invited to do the right thing now, right? And the same thing, delivery platform, Uber and the rest of the delivery platforms, right? In some other country, they're forced to cap their fees. And in Canada, they don't voluntarily cap their fees to say, this is the country that supported our business over the years. Why don't we do it voluntarily to show partnership for 2 months? Show a gesture of love and kindness to the community that supported your business, right? And they don't. And those two components I think will become the biggest and the most important two components of the P&L, the profit and loss statement, that will decide if businesses will continue or not. And it's sad to listen to some podcasts where people that copy the business, and they've been in the hospitality before I came to Canada even, that they're saying that we're giving up on this and we do not want to continue. It's very sad. It's hard to break.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. And it's such a major structural challenge, isn't it, across the board?
And to be clear, to be clear, I'm not talking about Paramount as a brand. When I discuss with Uber and others, I say Paramount will pay the 30%. That's fine. But can you do something for the industry and the small businesses? But our family, like the franchisee, the small businesses that we mentor, it's not about Paramount is a strong company. Plus, I come from a mentality of, and to any businessman or woman out there, right? I bank for disaster. I learned it from my dad. I bank for disaster 2 years for my personal life and 1 year for my business. If everything shut down, all the faucets has no water, I have some water somewhere for a year in my business and 2 years for my personal. But you're only good if everyone else is good and healthy in your community. You can't say, I'm fine, who cares about everyone else?
Yeah, good points. Okay, so we'll spend the next last 10 minutes here getting in a number of questions here, which is great. If you have a question, just mention me, Mark Balash, and in the chat in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'll see your questions. So kind of more open to anybody to answer if you want. So Shireen asks, what skill did you already have or you had developed over the years that has helped you grow your business? So I don't know, maybe Lauren, do you want to start, and then Jim and Mohamad can add in maybe some other points, comments?
Yeah, sure. I think Jim hit it on the head earlier, just saying persistence. So, and something you learn really early. And I've never, in honesty, had a job, so I'd be a terrible employee. But you learn. Everyone thinks that it's sexy to have your own business. Everyone thinks it's so cool, and you don't even have a boss. You can go to the beach every day, and you. I think that the key thing you learn early is and this is something Mohamad touched on, my employees are all my boss. So if I'm not there first in the morning, they notice. You set the tone. So the way that you work is important to be giving back to them to show them that you care as much as you want them to, at least. But you're setting the tone. So I've got over 100 bosses, and I think every day, a little bit of that inferiority complex just kind of creeps in for, I don't feel good enough for my people, and I need to every day strive to give them better opportunities. Anyways, this is a lot of nattering just to say, I think early on it's persistence and recognizing that your boss is now your people. And so while I might not report to someone directly on like a board or something like that, it's I report to every one of my people every day, and recognize that's pretty important.
That's good points. Yeah. Jim or Mohamad, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Jim, go ahead.
So I think that self-awareness is a great entrepreneurial trait, and I won't say I was good at it, but I've gotten better at it over time. And self-awareness to know what I'm good at and spend more time doing my unique ability and less time doing what I'm not as good at. And I surrounded myself with good people who do that, things that I'm not as good at. So it's self-awareness is what I would encourage entrepreneurs to spend time on.
I can't agree enough. I always say one of the best things that I've learned is know what I don't know. I mean, I learned it early on. The worst thing is when you don't know what you don't know, and you get involved in everyone's expertise. You hire them just because it looks good, but you don't listen, and you're not ready to really let them buy in by being part of the creation. IKEA is successful due to the Harvard study that, you buy a table, you put the screws wrong at home, you think that you put it together and become your art piece. All of a sudden you bought into it, and now you defend it, and you probably yell at your kid because they came close to it. So having your team building the strategy with you, the vision with you, not trying to surround yourself with people that they tell you you're right all the time is very important. And make sure not to lose who you are. Things that will make you proud. It's very important to not let your ego come between you and your business and your learning. It's very important because people will tell you that you're doing a great job, but if that ego takes over, you're done. And the reason why people came into your company will disappear. And again, it's all about people. Without people, we can't make our company successful. And you have to give them a reason different than money to be part of that company. And the reason 99% of the time is purpose.
That's good. Very excellent points. Very motivating. I always, as I've been doing this conference for 10 years now, I always get so many points from the keynotes, from the speakers, like to take away and kind of go, yeah, you know what? They said this, Mohamad said that, Jim said this. So Lauren said that, and it's so true. It keeps you focused. So another question that came in was from Nikki, and she asked, what do you think separates businesses that thrive in these times and those that don't survive? So it's open to anybody. Take this one on.
Yeah, I'd say right now mindset is a really big deal. So it is really hard sometimes to face the reality. As Mohamad's talking about, his industry and the restaurant is just getting just shattered. Ours is down over 70%. So you could wake up every day and you've got a couple options, right? You can wallow, you can panic, you can hide, or you can decide to say, well, where are my opportunities and what can I do? What could I pivot? And a lot of it just comes down to that, like, switch your mindset. It sounds like Mohamad was saying, if you put a quarter in a box every morning, or put $5 somewhere, just you start your day on your positive note by helping someone else. So, maybe try and think of who's in worse shape than I am right now and help them and learn something from it. But mindset, I think, is the only way to get through right now.
Yeah, and I personally think that it's very important to be able to go back to basics fast and to change and evolve. But you have to remember that your speed as an entrepreneur, you can't expect the rest of the team to do the same. And so you have to be kinder with your team, communicate better, right? But at the same time, really go back to basic and change your habits a little bit, your spending habits especially. It's a cash flow. How long can you last? And most importantly, don't worry about the flowers now in your backyard. It's early. Let's understand that there's 2 months, 3 months left, and see if you can make it better backyard. But for now, go back to every penny. Remember when you were building your business, and stay positive. And make sure when you come out of this, don't lose your noble mission. Because when you lose your noble mission, you lose yourself, and your team will think you only were good, and that noble mission stayed only on the times we're good. And that's very important.
And I think the companies that will thrive are the ones that don't define themselves too narrowly. So if you say, I am a eat-in restaurant, and that's all you ever do, you're going to probably go out of business. When you say, we supply food, oh, well, there's still lots of people that will take delivery, will pick it up. You just change the way you are. So, I mean, Danby Appliances, what do? We make refrigerators and freezers and wine coolers. Oh, and we make respirators. We're not a medical manufacturer, but we've got assembly capability. We see that there's a need, wasn't being filled. So doing things which are not in the norm and whatnot. I'm telling you, this is a really good time for a true entrepreneur. You will change it, and the more open you are to change who you are, the more success you'll have.
Yeah, really great advice. Okay, final thoughts from anybody? Anything you want to share anything that we haven't touched on, anything you want to promote, anything that comes to mind for entrepreneurs or otherwise?
I just want to say to everyone, look, I came out of a civil war. I'm an immigrant. I've been a refugee during my life. I've lived in bunkers with my family, dark bunkers. And when we used to leave the bunkers, I used to look at my dad's face, and I was smiling. And I'd say, what's wrong with you? Why are you smiling? We just came out of a bunker. He'd say, look, Mohamad, everyone else will find it very difficult to see the light. But the light will come. We'll build our country again. We'll open businesses again, and we'll hire more people again. And to everyone out there, I'm saying the light will come. We'll build our country again. We'll open businesses again, and we'll hire again. Stay positive, definitely stay healthy. And together, I think we just realized we maybe have lost several months of our life, but hopefully we're going to learn to be kinder to each other. And we're going to be looking forward to the day we leave, not the bunker, our beautiful homes, and give a hug to our neighbors and to our staff that we miss doing that. So we tell each other in person how we felt. And let's look forward to that light that we will see all. So don't be negative. It's okay to go to those dark places for a day or two, but come back. There is a beautiful country. Look, I came with nothing. The opportunity, this country will always be a place of hope for all of us. Let's believe in it and work hard to make it that way.
Great advice. You know, you always have a smile on your face, Mohamad. You're always positive. You never know if you're having a good day or bad day. Excellent. Okay. Anything else, Jim or Lauren? You got a couple minutes left, and that's about it. So, anything else you want to add? Or?
Adding to what Mohamad said, the secret to happiness is gratitude. And everyone who's listening today has a lot to be grateful for. And the more you focus on what you are grateful for, the more happy you will be. Or a further definition is being grateful for what you have, not ungrateful for what you've lost, because we've all lost some stuff. People aren't buying wine coolers anymore. Hotels aren't buying more refrigerators. We've lost something. So not being ungrateful for what you've lost and not being ungrateful for what someone else has. That's the secret to happiness, gratitude. So be grateful.
Great, Jim. Lauren, any last minute?
I'm just grateful to have been here and to have met the three of you and these smiles. I feel like I'm taking away from this some amazing lessons. Just smile, think, and act faster than your competitors. I've got some work to do. So I've been furiously writing notes down this whole time, just trying to learn. So thank you. I feel like small potatoes. I appreciate being here.
No, this was great. Really excellent. I take away a lot as well. It's great. I'm going to watch the recording again to make sure I got everything. But thanks very much for everything that the three of you are doing in the community. Thanks for participating in the CEO panel for the first Virtual Toronto Entrepreneurs Conference. For those that are interested, our next event, provided we can have it live, will be on October 6th at the Mississauga Convention Center. That'll be our live event. And, there's still a minute or two left if you want to go out and network, meet some of the exhibitors that are here, and we're going to wrap things up right at 4:30. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming. Thanks to all of you on the panel as well. And have a great day. Stay safe and be well. And hopefully we can get through this very quickly.
Lauren,
thanks so much.
Jim, Mark, thank you very much. Thank you. Very good to see you all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.